also pointed out to him, gave him props, and I said, you know, you and Ossoff are the first guys to be talking about corruption in an aspirational way, which sounds peculiar, but the corruption, and look, I wrote a Substack on this too. I was seeing it in my polling saying this is going to pop. This is going to be the big issue. And it absolutely is, because it is the thing, it is the thread that stitches the cost of living and economic concerns together for people. And that's what's different about this year.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote Podcast. Don't you worry, I am back. You do not have to put up with Mike Madrid shit no more. I was gone for 2 weeks riding a grizzly bear, and this is what happened when your drunk uncle gets in charge of the car. Hi, Mike. Good to be back.
It's great to have you back. I'm sure our ratings will drop a little bit. Our best trafficked episodes are when Mike Madrid
That's a damn lie.
It's true.
You lie like a rug.
We're going to post some of our stats on this episode just to show that. But that we like you anyway. We'll like you anyway. We got some great grizzly bear photo. It's got to be child abuse. You can't be having young kids that close to wild grizzly bears up in the Alaska Klondike.
I tweeted that my son, when I went and met him halfway in Pittsburgh and picked up the boys, the last thing he said to me as I was closing the Jeep door was, "Dad," and he looks at me and he goes, "Don't do nothing crazy with my children." I was like, "Don't worry, I got this. He's going to go, no problem." And then 3 days later, I sent him a video of a mama grizzly bear within 5 feet of both of his children.
Unbelievable. It's like, that's a wild animal, man. That thing is a monster. You got silverback gorillas down in Ecuador, wherever you're at. You got grizzly bears up in the Klondike.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you keeping this thing afloat. I have listened to both episodes. I think the first one was a little crazy. Like you always do a little crazy episode when I'm gone and you get in everybody's ass. But the second one was really good with the sheriff.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating. And like I said, I kind of have this new appreciation for South Texas.
I could see you falling in love with him as you were talking to him. You were like, oh.
Yeah. It was intriguing. And like I said, he's putting up a good fight. Tough grounds, tough terrain down there. I think it's kind of bullshit that, you know, De La Cruz's are kind of creating this family business. She's going to lose to Bobby Pulido. I mean, I'm convinced of that. But the irony is she's going to lose and then her brother's going to win. Better chance anyway. But Johnny Garcia, the sheriff, she's got a good shot at this thing. I mean, don't count him out.
We're going to talk about some numbers here in a little bit and talk about how that race is in play because of what we're seeing in Texas. And this is where I want to start the conversation. I read your amazing Substack piece on my way back from Alaska. And I want you to know, as somebody who was born and raised in East Texas, as somebody who's campaigned all over East Texas, to somebody who was in Corpus Christi fishing for redfish less than 2 months ago, I learned so much about Beeville. My hat literally off to you because I was like, holy fuck me running. I had no idea Beeville had so much history.
Beeville has some crazy history. You know, when I was invited to come down there about a week before I went down, I'm like, I better do some studying up on this part of the country. And I did a ton of research because it's a fascinating, complex little place where everything that looks like it isn't, like a lot of small towns. I am a little bit shocked. I don't mean to back up a little bit here, but you should not be eating fish out of that Corpus Christi Bay, brother. I had a hotel room with a view, and all I could see is oil
chemical
tankers.
Plants as far as you could see.
Refineries and chemicals.
Let me be clear. I shipped
fishes with 3 eyes. It's like, what's going on?
I shipped home 120 pounds of halibut and salmon that I caught in Alaska. I have never kept a fish out of Galveston Bay or Corpus Christi. Oof. No, hell no.
I think, like, looking out at night, I think the bay was glowing a little bit. It looked like it was a little light green aura. I was like, is this the Northern Lights? Can you see the Northern Lights from Southern Texas?
No, that's chemical plants in Texas, baby.
It's the smell of money. That's the smell of money out there. Yeah.
How far is Beeville from Corpus? About an hour?
A little, about an hour. Yeah. Beeville sits right, as I kind of start the essay, right between Corpus Christi and San Antonio. I said 45 minutes north of Corpus Christi, 100 miles south of San Antonio, and a universe away from Washington, D.C. It is a different world. They make them different down in those parts. So.
I sent Mike a text, and I was like, man, the way you bring this to life, for those of us who don't write, it makes us appreciate writers. Explain to this. This part really blew me away. A lot of it did. But explain why all of the cities are the same distance from each other.
Wasn't that fascinating? So as I'm researching, and a lot of this is trying to understand, and I've never understood this until now, Texas culture, right? It's like, how are so many people living in Texas so far spread out? Because in California, we didn't do that. Like we're all concentrated on the coast, and there's a handful of people in the Central Valley, and then a couple crazies up way north. Texas is different. Texas has small town culture all over the state. And the reason why is it was done by design. It was done because the pioneers, the settlers, and we'll get to that in just a second. What they did was they were 30 miles away. Each town is about 30 miles away because it was one day by covered wagon. You could travel across the Texas Republic, wake up early before the crack of dawn, pack up the covered wagon, head out. And by nightfall, you are in the next town and got another place to sleep. Now, all of these towns in Texas, most of them anyway, are named after white settlers. Barnard B and Beeville and Goliad and Kennedy and all these places I'd never heard of. But there's these small towns, 10,000 people, 7,000 people, 13,000 people. And they're all named after white settlers. That's not like California, where the whole damn place is all named after, Catholic Spaniards and Spanish names, because of the colonizer was very different in both places. So anyway, a long way of saying, but that creates a culture where retail politics really matters. Like dance hall culture is a thing. Like you go to a dance hall and people are driving from 30 miles out all around, putting on their Sunday best, a lot of, Chuck Rocha, cowboy hats and belt buckles the size of the Galveston Bay and shiny old boots and big ass pickup trucks that Gallego's talking about. These are Tejanos, and they know their culture. Like they don't care about either party. They could give a rip about either party. The parties have to come to them. They're not like trying to fit their ideology into a red or blue lens. They are who they are. And that's where, like I said, Bobby Pulido fascinates me, clearly as a candidate, because he's a cultural figure. He's not a politician. This guy's an architect of Hispanic Tejano culture. He's at the forefront of it. Everybody in those parts, everybody knows who Bobby Pulido is. Talk to this waitress. She's 23, 24-year-old. Beeville, her family's been there for 5-6 generations.
You got a Whataburger or a Dairy Queen?
Well, that's the other part. Like, that's the only food out there is Whataburger and Dairy Queen. A California boy like me can't eat that food. Like, I can't do it. It'll kill me. So I went to the only steakhouse in town because I'm like, at least I can get like a grilled piece of chicken and some vegetables. And so I go to this steakhouse and there's this, beautiful, young mid-20s Latino waitress. And I said, can we talk about politics a little bit? And she's like, I don't want to talk about politics. And I'm like, but she did. And she was very gracious. The Texans are great people, as you know, very, very, very accommodating.
Yes, sir. People. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, the nicest damn people. You can ask people in a grocery store, like directions to the nearest gas station. And they're just, well, let me tell you where,
Sweetie, let me easy now, sweetie.
Oh, unbelievable. You do that in California, people think you're crazy. They're going to call the cops on you. You can't be talking to people. He came on
me, called me sweetie. Then he looked like he wanted to grab my ass. But anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not about this long story, but this woman was really fascinating. She was like, I'm pretty conservative. I support gun rights. I vote Republican. I ain't going to vote in these midterms because I don't know what they are, but I voted for Trump. And I said, well, do you know who Bobby Pulido is? And her face lit up. She's like, of course, Bobby. Yeah, I love Bobby Pulido. And there was a poster for the free concert on the restaurant door when I walked in. I said, have you heard about this concert? And she said, oh, we've just been talking about it all morning. Like everybody's gonna go. And I go, are you going to be there? And she says, well, my husband, she married, Mary Young out in those parts. And she just said, I don't know if my husband wants to go out, but if he wants to, it's a free concert. And free mattered, by the way. Free entertainment in those parts matters, right? And I said, well, what do you think? Would you vote for Bobby Pulido? And she goes, I don't know where he stands on anything, but I'm pretty sure that he would stand up and represent our values. And what she meant was like our region, our culture, all people. He knows who we are. She wasn't talking about issues like trans bathrooms and abortion rights and gun control and all that. She was saying that he's one of us. Like this guy knows us. And it was just a really fascinating thing to watch and to see is he's not viewed at all as a politician down there because he's somebody who's been in their homes and they sing his songs and they're excited when he comes to town. And it's going to be a really fascinating dynamic to watch what's going on in South Texas this year.
So she didn't have blue hair and a master's degree, I assume. Anyway,
not, but no. That's a good point because I was talking this morning to our good friend Sabrina Rodriguez at the Wall Street Journal. She's doing this story on Abdul Al-Sayed, right, DSA candidate up in Michigan, and I'm like, Abdul Al-Sayed and Bobby Pulido are going to be in the same caucus, in the same party. Like the Democratic Party is going to get pretty big and pretty diverse ideologically. And I told Johnny, the sheriff that I interviewed while you were out, playing with the Grizzlies in the Klondike, and I talked to Bobby, and I said, do you understand what it's going to be like when you walk into that caucus meeting, when you win in November with your cowboy hat and your belt buckle and your boots, and you're going to be in a caucus with a bunch of urban Latinos who are going to be like, who's that guy? And you're going to be saying, I proudly, confidently, comfortably, I'm a conservative Democrat. I don't believe in gun control. I don't believe in these crazy ass things that you all believe in. And this is how you win Texas. Because as a political consultant, I don't give a rip how much you win Los Angeles by, whether you're DSA or whether you're centrist, and whether that gets you 3 or 4 more % of the Latino vote. You win Texas, you're a different party. You're a different party. If you want to be a majority party.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So one of the things you wrote about that I think it's important for all of you nerds, some of which are in downtown LA and New York, we love you too. All of our listeners we love, are the diversity of the people that are listening to this podcast, the same as diversity of these parties.
Yeah.
But Beeville is not in Corpus, and Corpus is small, and it's not in San Antonio. It's 2 hours from San Antonio, and it is a long way from Austin or Houston, y'all. Now, when Mike starts his writing and his venture of going to Beeville and going to this free concert and going by all these burger joints, Beeville now is 70% Latino, but it's also 70% Republican.
Yeah.
Y'all need to understand that this is a Latino stronghold that is very, very Republican, right, Mike?
You nailed it. And that's why the article I wrote said Beeville is the most important town in America for the midterms. And Bobby knows this. That's why he's going there. He's going into the heart of the beast. Like he's not trying to run a base campaign. He's like, I'm going to go win Hispanic Republican votes, and I'm going to win this, and I'm going to win this by a good margin. Like I'm going to run the table here. I'm not in this to play for 50% plus one. I'm in here to start running the scoreboard and change things up. And if Democrats win that vote back, look, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening going, we don't want that vote. We ran those people out of the party a long time ago. Well, so be it. But this is what you get. You get Donald Trump.
You can't win without these kind of people. Now, let me also, people who also say, well, we need to get the new urban lefty. That's great. We can do both. You can do both. If they want to all be in, you can do. Ruben likes to say, why not and? Why don't we go talk to conservative Latinos and go talk to young people about our values and see where they line up and get people? Anyway, there was a point I wanted to make about Beeville strategically. Oh, I remember. So sure, I was in Alaska with my boys and I had a great time. But the other reason I couldn't go to Beeville is because I work on Bobby's race and on the sheriff's race from the IE side.
Yeah,
I'm working for the largest IE, and I could legally go down there and be at a public event, but you don't know about conversations that could happen. Yeah. And so I didn't, for those of us who already have a criminal record, I didn't want to get that close to the line. So I told Mike, you just do that. I don't want to start something where FEC lawyers calling me about a private meeting I might or might not have had with somebody.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is I'm buying advertising in this district. I'm making ads right now in Bobby Pulido's district that are Spanish ads.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what's hard about Beeville. Beeville is in the northern tip of a little, I don't know what you'd call it, an isthmus on the gerrymander, what we will call later a dummy mander.
Look at isthmus. Did you say isthmus?
I learned the isthmus because that's where you fish. It's around the isthmus.
You doing some book learning in Alaska?
That's just where the fishing comes into the book learning. Is the isthmuses is where this little spigot of land goes out into the water. Huh. So there's one of these isthmuses that goes up around Corpus. That is the 15th congressional district. Now, for those of you who are staying with me, how do you talk to those people? Well, Chuck, you buy TV and digital advertisement out of the nearest city where there's a TV station. Well, that's kind of Corpus, but that's also kind of San Antonio. There's no real penetration. Now, stay with me. I'm going to keep this PG into this media market. So these people are almost impossible to talk to unless you send them a piece of mail or call them on their cell phone or knock on their door. Now, the finality to that is most political consultants, mainly white consultants from LA, New York, or DC, will say, let's just buy TV in McAllen. Let's just buy TV in San Antonio. And let's buy maybe a little bit of TV in Corpus, and we'll have covered most of this. There'll be some places that don't get touched. Guess what don't get touched? Beeville, Texas never gets touched. They never talk to anybody in Beeville because it's just too far out of the media market. Nobody is saying that they ain't worth talking to. It's just where these people line up. Right. That's why this story was perfect.
Yeah. So this is great. And again, we're going to put up, Diego, let's put up a map of Texas 15 because it is an isthmus. It's like it's very
I'm so proud I got that right.
I am too. Like, I'm impressed. Like, you've been practicing your reading. That's great. It's like you're on those apps learning new words. But it's a small, thin district that runs basically from Corpus Christi north along these highways that we're talking about with these pioneers settled this land. And talked to this guy named Donato Medina, who's like the political data nerd. And there's always a political data nerd on a campaign. So I sat down and talked with him. And he was just giving me a master class in political, knowledge in that part of the country. And he was saying the thing about Beeville is this: it's the last city heading north that's a high Latino, high Hispanic in those parts. It's Hispanic, not Latino. Large Hispanic population that is also Trumpy. Once you go north up to Live Oak and to other areas north, it gets really, really white. They don't want Hispanics in those parts.
There's signs saying don't be here at night.
Yeah, it's a sundown city. And so Beeville is a bridge, as he explained it. It's a bridge between brown and white, past and future, and the politics that allow for a Beeville to be switched back to a conservative Democrat are very different than if you keep going further north into the plain, up into the Texas plain, where it gets whiter and more conservative, and they don't like Hispanics as much. So Beeville is a real flashpoint. And again, the other thing I learned from Bobby was, they're being outspent 17-1 right now on TV. 17-1. He's like, Mike, they're kicking my butt. And I was like, are they though? You're up 6-7 points in most of the polls. Like, something's sticking. Like, you're holding in there. And the reason why you do these dance halls is because that's how people socialize. Sure, they're on social media a little bit, but they're not living on Facebook groups. You can't buy those districts with TV. No offense. I know you're making $1 million, and that's why you're going from Alaska to Ecuador within the same
to the isthmuses. But go
ahead.
Yeah,
while I'm in Beeville, Texas, you're like doing the exotic journeys because you're the one making money in these races.
This is true.
I'm just kind of observing and doing my best part to save the country. But anyway,
oh my God,
my point is, retail politics really does matter in these parts. You got to shake people's hands. That ain't like in California. No one wants to shake your hand in downtown LA districts that are overwhelmingly Latino. People think you're crazy and you're nuts. Here, it's like, if you're not going to Friday night football games, if you're not sponsoring the local,
4-H club.
4-H clubs are massive down there. If you're not, that's why the quinceañera strategy was so genius. Like, these things really matter. Culture matters. People matter. Community matters. Shaking hands matter. And people know not just Bobby Pulido, they know Roberto Pulido, his dad, who was on those circuits singing Tejano music before him when Bobby was just a kid. So again, I know I'm a little bit, I don't fall in love with races the way I have with this one, but it's not just the candidate who I think is great. You all know that, but it's also the fact that he's a cultural figure who is now running in politics, as opposed to a political figure trying to get into the culture and drive messaging.
And I think that because we're a show of brown nerds, and that I love giving you shit and you giving me shit, that's how Latinos show love to each other. It's the same way that they do community in places like these halls. What'll be interesting is when we talk about this, 1,000 people showing up, 600 people showing up in a dance hall in Beeville does not win Bobby the race. But those people and who they go back and talk to, exactly. That's how you start building an organizing tree of this is the message that gets out. If you do 10 quinceañeras in a city over 3 weekends, that turns into 500, 800, 1,000 people that then go talk to 1,000 people. Then you're meeting people who are having the validation of, if they run 17-1 ads against you, saying that you're for trans bathrooms or you like to watch the squirrels make love in the park, people are like, no. I know Bobby Pulido. He was at my sister's quinceañera.
Yeah. It inoculates it.
He was in Beeville. That's not him. Like
Right.
he may not be perfect, but he ain't one of them assholes, right? So that's the key. And when we do the analysis of this race, along with other races in Texas, but more so when we look at this race and I don't want to start using my big words. We juxtaposed it against
My goodness. Someone's reading
the
on these long flights.
I did CNN this morning with Wolf Blitzer. I feel smart. Anyway, in California 22, with what Randy's doing in the Central Valley against a strong incumbent named Valadeo. Again, Randy's not wearing a cowboy hat, but
No.
Randy's the kid of an auto mechanic shop owner.
Yeah.
And does some work at the community college, and his family were Mexican farm workers. Like Randy's a little left of Bobby, but Randy is a Mexican from the district, right? It'll be watching how these two campaigns work, Mike, side by side, right?
Yeah, I'm going to write a story on just this. You're exactly right, because this is fascinating to me. I'm in Denver right now. I sat down, had dinner with Manny Rutinel, which we can maybe, I think, talk about a little bit, congressional candidate here in the Denver area, one of the core 4 Latino races in the country, which is kind of why I want to meet and talk with all these folks. And I'm going to get down and talk to Randy. I'm going to drive down there because after going to South Texas, I want to go to the Central Valley of California. Because get this, I mean, you're exactly right, but the contrast between Bobby Pulido and Randy Villegas is amazing. Like Randy is working family party, not quite DSA, but DSA adjacent.
Sure,
like
he's very left.
He's very far left of the party, and Bobby's very far right of the party, but they're from the same demographic. Like they're both from oil country. They're both from ag. They're both from farming. They're both from communities.
A lot of cowboy hats in the Central Valley.
Cowboy hats and belt buckles and pickup trucks. They are the same damn districts. I think they're both going to win, by the way. And that's, to me, is a real fascinating tale about what's happening in the fundamentals of this.
They're both in the same caucus, to your point.
They're both going to be in the same caucus, brother. It's just, it's a great story that no one's talked about yet. So I'm glad you brought it up because I am going to get down there. I'm going to be doing some focus groups down there in the Fresno area, a little further south, but with Latinos down there on a different project. I'll report back, but I'm going to write that story as, kind of a tale of two valleys and go from there.
So Mike's in Colorado. I'm going to highlight the 4 that we're going to stay focused on, which is Bobby Pulido, the Colorado 8 with Manny Rutinel, California 22 with Randy, and then Arizona 6 with JoAnna Mendoza, which is everything south of Tucson along the border, which again, rural country, cowboy hat, border Mexicans, where you have a woman, but not just a woman, but a woman who was a drill sergeant in the U.S. Marines, right? So this is where all of these things start lining up. I'm curious, again, on all of these races, I am on the IE side, except for Randy's. On Randy's, we're actually working in the campaign, but so I couldn't go with Mike to Colorado either. But Manny's an interesting story because the party, quote unquote, there was this white woman who ran. Hang on, let me stop there and back up because the story is more important to know the history. This was a newly created congressional seat north of Denver that was made in a nonpartisan commission when they added a seat. So they made the seat truly 50-50. And they put it where the growth had been in Denver and in Colorado, which guess what? Was Latinos north suburbs and Adams County, which is also farm country, lots of farms up there. And they made it 50-50. Democrat, Republican, it's about 41% Latino. And in the first iteration of this Latina runs, that's a doctor, and she gets elected, neither left nor right, but a doctor. And she never run for office, and she wins in a year. But then she loses this seat last year because of the Trump wave. And now Democrats are looking for somebody in a 50-50 district to beat this white guy who's pretty Trumpy. And the establishment kind of runs this white state rep woman named Rebecca Byrd, let's call her. Her last name was Byrd. And this young guy named Manny Rutinel, who's a state rep, but kind of a lefty, is very much an animal activist and all kinds of crazy stuff, but good stuff, very working families, relatable, but a young guy, actually a skinny Mexican wearing a cowboy hat sometimes. Yeah. And he beat her ass in the primary. Yeah. And then that's who you met with him last night?
Yeah, impressive candidate. There was a dinner. It was a kind of a small private dinner. I'm here for the Latino Leaders Luncheon. Mickey Barra, kind of goes around the country. It kind of keeps a lot of these folks together.
Are you getting another award?
I'm not getting an award, but Janet Murguia is here. Janet was here from Unidos US, and Mickey Barra is here. Federico Peña was with us at dinner last night. What a great dude! I've known, followed his career for 30 years. It's great to finally meet him. Ken Salazar, who we're going to have on the show to talk about his book Borderland soon. And Manny, this guy, young kid, young, handsome, thin kid, nice, blue blazer, and comes in and sits down kind of a little bit late to everything, and he just kind of has his presence about him. He's going places, right? And you get that sense. So I'm like, hey, that's Manny, right? I've seen photos of him. So I sidle up to him and start chatting him up, and I'm like, hey, want to get you on the podcast? He obviously would love to do it. He's going to do it. If I've got to do it myself, I'll do it myself, right? To interview him.
We can have him on a public podcast. A lawyer's okay then.
Okay. And so then, I was talking to him about just kind of the race and stuff. So I'm going to sit down and kind of, geek out with him. And I want to learn about this race, because I do want to talk about these core 4 races a little bit more publicly, because I think, especially listeners of this podcast, we'll put links, if not in this show and other shows, of how you can contribute and help these 4 Latinos that are in the most contested congressional races in the country be successful. It's not ideological. I'm going to urge you, if you're far left, if you're far right, stop with the ideology. Now is the time. This is the year. This is the talk I gave to this dinner last night. There's Republicans and Democrats in the room. There's old Obama people, old Clinton people. There's George W. Bush people. We're all in this room saying this is the moment where the community has to rally. We got to support each other. This isn't about ideology. This is about turning a page in American history. And so we got to support, especially these 4 candidates, because if these 4 candidates win, Manny Rutinel, Randy Villegas, Bobby Pulido, and then
JoAnna Mendoza.
I'm sorry.
What all 4 of these have in common, not that they're just Latino candidates, and they're from every aspect, male, female, left, right, middle, young, and a little older. Most of them are young. Is that they're all running against a Republican incumbent. So these are not open seats. This would be big pickups where Latinos, most of them are Latino majority seats. The Colorado weight's the only one that's not, but it's at 42. And they're all, none of them in a city. They're all rural to the Colorado seat's a little ex-urban, because it's about an hour north of Denver. Folks probably still commute that far. And in Tucson, if you want to call Tucson a big old city, it only has parts of Tucson. But so that's why this is really incredible. Are there places where there's Latinos running? Like, we got to make sure Gabe Vasquez is fine, and there's 2 incumbents, and you have the sheriff down in Texas, and you have Miss Padilla who's running against the AK guy. But those are all kind of outliers, and there's possibility of winning those. But the 4 core that would be battleground states no matter the year are these, because they're in marginal seats. Bobby's is probably a little added in, because in a normal year, if it wasn't Bobby Pulido, we wouldn't be winning an R+18 seat.
That's exactly right.
Right. It's a special, right. And Bobby will have to fight for that seat from now on if he wins it. But Mike, I pulled up some numbers I wanted to ask you about while I was at my last little thing, because I thought it would be a good thing. I saw it on the Twitter, which I know has got to be very factual. It said, I sent you this because this guy on Twitter was talking about the dummy mander. And it said, this guy says, the dummy mander I warned you about, the GOP is real. And it's reflected in these latest polls, which he puts 3 Texas races. He says Texas 15, which was a Trump +18 district, has Bobby Pulido 50, De La Cruz 45. That's a lot like the last 4 or 5 polls. Mike can talk about this when I finish. Texas 28, which is Henry Cuellar, which is a Trump +10 district. Cuellar currently is polling at 45. Tijerina is at 34. Oof. In Vicente Gonzalez's district, right next to Bobby, which is everything Bobby don't represent, next to the ocean. So it's Brownsville up to Corpus. It's a Trump +10 seat. You have Gonzalez at 45 and Flores, sound familiar? She's run before, at 42, 45, 42, a little closer down there because she's run before. So like all of these seats were the Republicans thought were guaranteed pickups for them, right, Mike?
Yeah, this is that dummy mander. I don't know who the fellow is saying I warn the GOP a Democratic strategist, but God bless them. It's Twitter. You get to flex here a little bit and beat your chest. But look,
I sent it to you just to trigger you.
I know you did. Getting me all hopped up. It was Democratic consultant saying, I warned the Republicans, get the fuck out of here. So anyway, look, these 3 of those seats, those 3 you mentioned, I think are very likely to go to the Democratic Party. 3 of these 5 seats are going to move in that direction. A lot of us were, saying earlier on before the seats were finalized, this was going to happen. Because Republicans believed erroneously that these new Hispanic Latino voters were somehow going to be part of their new MAGA coalition. There's no evidence saying that. You've heard me rant about it over and over and over again. It's a complete misjudgment and misreading. The key again is going to be, will Democrats learn that lesson on November 5? Is to be like, we learned our lesson. We got it wrong in 2024. We're going to have to make an adjustment, and let's start building a cohesive policy agenda to not only protect these seats, but start building and adding. And I think that the opportunity to really redefine the party in a positive way could not be bigger heading into the 2028 presidential election with people like these core four. And again, they're so different. They're so different, these four candidates, that it really is going to change the Hispanic caucus, the Democratic caucus. And if you start winning places like Texas, brother, everything changes. The whole story changes. The 270 map changes. And I believe that the Democrats finally get out and get past believing that it's the Rust Belt, which is where their 270 map strategy remains, and it moves down to the Sun Belt. Because something else is happening. I want to talk about this real quick because this is important. When North Carolina is basically safe Democrat at this point, and Ossoff is running away with it in Georgia, and you've got big shares of Latino voters in both of those districts. Again, I was talking this morning to our friend Sabrina at the Wall Street Journal, talking about Florida. Is Florida in contention? Is it not? Like Texas is in play. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. There's no analyst that can look at it and say it's not contestable. It absolutely is. And then you start looking at New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada. That Sun Belt, because of the rise of the Latino vote, is putting the 270 map into a very different way of looking at how we elect a president of the United States. I'm not saying it's a lock for the Democrats at all. As you know, I'm the last guy to say that, but I am saying there's an opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And when you have a Bobby Pulido, and when you have a Gabe Vasquez, when you have a Ruben Gallego making the case that they're going to have to center up and start talking about working class issues from that perspective, I think it's a new day for the Democratic Party. I think it can actually get back to being a party of working class people, an FDR party, just with a darker complected, better food, a hell of a lot better music than what they've had over the past 50, 60 years.
So I think that, you're on to something that we've been talking about for some time. I think it's important that the Equis polling backs this up. So this is not Mike Madrid, Republican talking points, all that bullshit.
Even though he's just been wrong, angry, even though he's been right the whole time. But go ahead.
Or it's not Chuck Rocha who's angry because you're hiring a white consultant. This is like Equis Lab, who is the stalwart with my dear friend Stephanie and Carlos over there talking about, like, sure, there's great movement in this electorate, but they are not running to Democrats because they're Democrats. They're running away from Donald Trump and the failed economic policies. And so I think the real tale will not be after we finish 26. It'll be this robust debate where you're going to have Democrats, no less than 20 of them, trying to figure out how to court this vote in Nevada and New Mexico for a primary. And do they run as Bobby Pulido, Gabe Vasquez Democrats? Ruben Gallego is that perfect fit. Or do they run as a Mondani, something else where they think that's the thing?
Yeah.
But that argument is there to be made.
It's a good argument. It's a good, healthy debate too.
Absolutely. But I want to bring up two more districts that we failed to talk about, one of which you interviewed Johnny Garcia, who's the sheriff in North San Antonio. The district is the north part, wraps around San Antonio. But y'all, if this thing ends up being D+5 or more, those polls, they're not polling in 35. They're not polling in Texas 23 because they're harder, right? But the Trump number are not as big as they are in Bobby's or in Cuellar's.
Exactly.
And it's an open seat in 35 where you have De La Cruz's brother, if you listen to the podcast, running against Sheriff Johnny Garcia. And Sheriff Johnny Garcia is law and order, economics. Like, I was fascinated. I had never done a one-on-one, so I was listening with bated breath, and he is a great candidate. I couldn't believe he was 40 years old. Anyway, I'm getting old. But I was like, oh my God, he's a great fit if he can get the money. And we're working on that race on the IE side, right? And things are moving there just like we're working on the 23rd on the IE side. But these two races cannot just be whistled past because they're majority Latino seats as well. They just happen to be San Antonio for 35. And then that 23rd, remind all of you who are old nerds, that's that seat that runs from San Antonio along the border, Mike, the entire border to El Paso. That giant seat that was always like marginal and went back and forth between our parties forever. That's the seat that the AK guy, which is where Gonzalez stepped down, and this woman who's a former social worker, she's a lawyer, her last name is Padilla, Katie Padilla, is running. So like anything could happen in that if it's that much of a dummy matter. It'll be interesting to see how these do compared to the three that actually sit on the border,
Yeah, that's right. And look, let's visit on Johnny a little bit too. He's the only law enforcement officer running right
You
now
asked
as a
that question.
Democrat.
Right. I
Yeah,
was
which is
blown away.
right. He's he's a and he's from San Antonio, like born and raised. He's got kindergarten buddies who are involved with the campaign. Like he's of San Antonio, born and bred, and
He kept
like I
talking
said,
about Big Red and tacos.
and
Oh,
I mean,
barbacoa. That's what it was. Big Red and barbacoa.
yeah, I mean he's right on message. He's the right messenger. And look, in an environment like this, there are going to be some big shocking surprises. There's going to be some big upsets. You're old enough to remember 1994, well, when Ann Richards lost. But remember, who was the Speaker of the House, the Democrat Speaker of the House that lost up in Washington State?
Foley.
Boy, Tom Foley. There you go. You're older than I am. So yeah, like Foley, like no one saw that coming. Like this is that kind of a year. I've been saying publicly when I have not seen the fundamentals of a race so bad for an incumbent party since 1994. You're going to see some shockers. I wouldn't doubt it if Kansas Senate comes into play. Rob Sand in Iowa wins. Ohio probably goes to the Democrats. So when you're talking about Johnny Garcia, the deputy sheriff there, you can't count that out. It's in play. It is, and that complicates things for portioning money, and that's where the political guys start getting goosey and nervous because they're all going to play it very conservative. But the map is expanding, brother. Nobody back in January was saying North Carolina would be put away. Ossoff would be walking away with it. Ohio is in contention.
We would be expanding to Iowa and Texas in the Senate map.
Arkansas has the Democrat up 2 in the Senate race with a bunch of polling coming out. Like the New York Times is running stories saying there are multiple ways to a majority here. Maine is looking better. Like all of these races, Alaska, where you were just at, like Peltola could very easily win that race.
I was there for the primary, and the Democrats there got more votes than the Republicans in the primary, and it's a top 4 system, and the bottom 2 are nobody. So anyway, let me give you this little tidbit. Univision, Televisa, when you're watching this, will have just rolled out their new public poll, which is just of Latinos in battleground congressional districts. And Mike, before you ask, they used Heart Research, our good friend Eileen Cardona, who you were on the panel with at the Latino Vote Summit. They have hired Eileen and her team to do the polling for this battleground. So I think they actually met the Televisa crew at our thing. And
nice.
Then they liked her so much they brought her on board, and she's doing some of their battleground polling now.
That's fantastic.
Look
at us putting people together. We got to have her on the show.
Happen. Yes.
Yeah, we should have her on the show to talk about these polls.
So I texted over there this morning and said, is there anything this morning that you could tell me that I could mention on the podcast before it's public? And it'll be public by the time y'all hear this tomorrow. And she said, it's no surprise that in the battleground districts, the number one issue was cost of living and affordability. And but it's at 62%. Like that's where, like when you ask folks, normally folks can agree at 30, 40, and then everything's else at 20 or 18 or whatever, because there's so many things that people care about. But when it's consolidated at 62%, it shows just how big that issue is.
It's not ICE raids. It's not ICE raids.
It's not ICE raids. Don't start. But yes, it is cost of living, number one, followed by corruption. Corruption's number 2.
Madrid called this. You heard it here on the podcast. I was saying weeks ago, corruption is the emergent issue, and Democrats are going to start talking about it. Who said it? Mike Madrid said it.
Need everybody to Alaska,
subscribe,
but
maybe clap.
It was definitely Old Bear.
Oh man. Okay, well that's great though. They're finding it. Corruption. It's a huge issue. It's emerged. This is great.
Which I've been hearing a lot of candidates say the same thing. They're talking about cost, corruption, and chaos is what I've been hearing a lot from Democrats. You can tell that that's a central theme.
I'll put a pin in this because I want to talk about Talarico after you're done with this segment because this is important. Go ahead.
And so all of it, that's the only nugget she sent me other than, they want you to buy Spanish TV and you should. Even English consumers, I think there's more advertising happening now in our communities. There needs to be more, but I just wanted to back you up, and I knew it'd make you feel good for me to give you the cost and corruption messaging.
Ooh, more than ICE. Where was ICE? I'm sure, was it like...
I said, give me the top 2, and that was all. Leave it alone. Quit picking at that scab.
Get her on the show. We need her on the show now.
On the show. I need validation now.
Diego, call her. Patch her in.
Ask me about Talarico. Did you get Talarico down there?
I got to interview Talarico, and I wanted to talk to him about this issue.
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
You want to know what makes Chuck Rocha nervous is when I'm on an airplane from Alaska and all of a sudden I see a picture on my phone of my best friend who gives me more shit than anybody I know meeting with my biggest client without me there. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the end. I think on Twitter, I put, this is a picture of when your parents go and meet the principal at school.
Yeah, nothing to be nervous about. Nothing to be nervous about. I wanted to talk to him about like what was happening, what was new, what was catching, why Latinos, what was working. And I also pointed out to him, gave him props, and I said, you and Ossoff are the first guys to be talking about corruption in an aspirational way, which sounds peculiar, but the corruption, and look, I wrote a Substack on this too. I was seeing it in my polling saying this is going to pop. This is going to be the big issue. And it absolutely is, because it is the thing, it is the thread that stitches the cost of living and economic concerns together for people. And that's what's different about this year. I'm going to post this Talarico interview in just a little bit, but this guy he's got it. Like James Talarico is putting on a master class on messaging and capturing the moment. So I'll post the interview, but you gotta pay attention to what's going on there. Listen to John Ossoff with his rallies. This dude's nailing it, and it's generational. And I asked James Talarico this: is it generational? He's like, absolutely, it is. We're starting to unite Gen Z and the millennials together with people of all races and ethnicities, because the culture of corruption that has seeped into our body politics for the last 50 years has taken a toll, and it's sucking our souls out through our screens, is what he says. Brilliant messaging. And none of this is, by the way, poll tested and focus group. This is who dude is. Like he's just good. So I wanted to mention that because Talarico's, I think what he is saying is bigger than Texas. It's a national message. And when you said corruption is popping up in Latino polls and battleground states, it's like, it's coming, man. This is going to be a generational moment where things are going to change significantly in this country.
If I was a writer like you, I'd be writing a story from Chuck Rocha, because this is what sat with me. And I told somebody this somewhere, one of the meetings I was in the last 3 or 4 days. I said, the 2024 Senate race that I was so heavily involved in was around a common issue of what me and Ruben like to call the big ass truck economy. And we knew that if a Latino had the money to buy a big ass truck, that's a symbolism that he's doing well enough to take care of his family and still has money to buy a big ass truck. That's what we all aspire to. I have a big ass Jeep. Your time in Beeville, you can see that boys like to drive big ass trucks, because that's a sign to our boys we've made it. We're doing good. Yeah. We can't afford a house down at the shore like they do over here, but we can afford this truck. And if we really get money, we can pull a boat. Right. That's super success for us. So that was what my 2024 was. That was my strategy. And that was Ruben's strategy. And I get to steal a lot of his ideas. My strategy with Talarico, and it's not just me, my God, it's so little of me. It's him. He is a natural talent, is what I try to get. They're like, how is he going to win? How is this not just Beto 2.0? And I said, in every place I've ever been, and now, Mike, that you've been to Beeville, you go to the restaurant, you meet the restaurant, you meet the waitress, you meet a little black woman, you meet a little abuela, you meet these women who control our lives, whether it's our wives or our grandmothers. And I told somebody, when I would bring a woman home to meet my mama, or I'd bring a woman over to meet my grandma Rocha, I'd make sure they dress nice, they do their thing. And my grandmother, I'd always want my grandmother to say, you know what, Chuck? She seems like a nice young girl. She seems like a nice girl. That's my strategy. That's James Talarico's strategy, is what you see is what you get. He comes from a place of kindness. When he speaks, it's not the reverend part, and it is. It's not the preacher part, but it is. But he has a kind soul. He has kind eyes. And when you spend time with him, you can tell that he is, this is the key, a nice young man. So when a woman or a man or whoever, but mainly these women, this nice young man who's talking about the corruption, who's talking about the cost of living, it gives him insulation of when they're going to attack him on trans bathrooms and on genders and whatever they want to attack him on. It won't work like it's worked on other folks, because he's a nice young man. That's just something we do in Texas, of like, he seems like a nice young man. And I just think it's floating under the radar of why he's being such a success, on top of what you're saying.
If I were advising, and I'm not, but if I were advising, I would take a different tack. And I'm not saying that won't work. You know better than I do. But here's what I saw. Talarico wins or loses Texas based off of the break, not amongst women, Hispanic women. It's going to be Latino men.
Sure, I agree with that.
And here's the message, and he's already on it. You're getting taken advantage of. These guys, these old boys are screwing you. They're screwing you on beef prices. They're screwing cattle ranchers. They're deporting people in the construction trade and industry. They're jacking up prices, and they're making a fortune on the back end with all of this corruption. It's all of their buddies. Well, the billionaires getting AI data centers in these areas that are taking, the water. They're using crypto schemes to back.
No, I agree with that.
That's where the race, I think, is going to be won, and I think that inoculates also better than being. And look, you can do both, by the way.
No, that's what I was going to answer.
But run offense.
Yeah, the ads that are running right now, if you watch the latest ads that were out, they're not about him being a nice young man. I'm just saying this because he's a nice young man. Yes. We're not running ads being a nice young man.
Yeah.
This is how he presents himself as a nice young man.
And
the ads are exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. That Ken Paxton will he will even steal your damn pen.
Yeah.
The guy who he stole the pen from. And that was a trigger for y'all. That we all know those guys in our lives that are such pieces of shit that you wouldn't even trust them around your wife.
Right.
That's who Ken Paxton is. And then you kind of sprinkle in the Papaw ad of him and his Papaw on the porch, like talking about the corruption and talking about things like this is where the cultural competency of like James Talarico and Seth and his team, who are really good, know how to touch the cultural competency of what Mike got to experience in Beeville.
Yeah.
Those folks in New York and DC, Mike, Madrid have no idea what Beeville is like.
Right.
They know downtown Houston. They probably know South Oak Cliff and the black districts in Dallas because they look a lot like the other places in Chicago and New York. But they do not know Beeville, Texas, just like they didn't know the Texas border.
I learned a lot. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years, and I went down there and I was like, these guys are more cowboy than they are Mexican. Yes. These are cowboys. Sure. And they're proud of it, by the way. And they know who they are, like I was saying. And they don't put up with, they don't believe any of the politicians. It's just all a bunch of bullshit. And that's what I'm saying. I think, especially with men, like you close that gap with men and you bring them back for Talarico, like that's what Paxton's going to try to exploit. His opening is going to be with men. They're trying to like say this guy's not manly enough. He's this Harvard educated theologian, he's not one of us. The way the corruption message is just the perfect foil. And like you said, Ken Paxton is like, he's like the Snidely Whiplash character.
You are old. I love Snidely Whiplash.
He's just the guy twisting his mustache while he's ripping you off.
The latest commercial talks about him having 15 houses and becoming rich while he's been in office in a job that pays $150,000 a year.
Bro, you need to just put a Latino version of that on there, of Latinos getting ripped off by the man. And that's money. That's going to like blow the doors off. Happy to work with you on that ad.
Nice. I'd be working on the hard side of that. So look, y'all, this is important and this is really good. Watch out for this upcoming interview that Mike's going to have with James. I wasn't there. I hope, my God, he didn't fire me. So I'm assuming you didn't tell him anything true yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And for all of you listening, we're going to put some pictures up of Alaska. I sent pictures of me and the boys catching fish. I got to fly, a story for another day. I got to fly a float plane in Alaska. It was pretty harrowing, my nephew would say. We had a great time. We hung out with the grizzly bears, but I am back. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad, Mike. Thank you again for keeping this thing afloat. Thank you again for that great story. You should all go to Mike's Substack and
we'll link it down here. Yeah.
Link it here and read the Beeville thing. I have worked in Texas my entire life, and Mike drew a picture with writing that's better than any movie you will ever watch. Watch it down there and see it come to life. And if you're lucky enough to still have your mom and your daddy, you should call them. I talked to my mama last night because Dolly died. Hat tip to Dolly Parton. We love you. What a great woman. If the aliens were to come, I want Dolly Parton to represent all of us. Call your mama, tell her you love her, and we'll see you next week.